did everything you were supposed to do. You faced your past, you looked where you hadn't wanted to look for years. You found your wounds, and not only did you name them, you began to heal them. But now you feel empty. You have no energy, no drive. And the worst part, you can't explain it. You should feel better. And yet you sit in silence, wondering if you broke something inside you. But what if this isn't a malfunction? What if this silence is a sign that your soul has stopped playing by the old sheet music? There's something no one talks about when it comes to deep inner work. Something Carl Gustav Jung understood perfectly, though he rarely spoke of it directly. After you resurface from diving into the darkness of your unconscious, you don't just feel better, you feel foreign, out of place, as if someone unplugged you from the world that used to fuel you. Jung once wrote that the breakdown of the persona is often mistaken for depression. But this isn't depression, it's transformation. Think about it. For years, maybe decades, your life was driven by mechanisms you weren't even aware of. The desire to be loved, the fear of being alone, a deep need to prove your worth, an escape from shame. These weren't choices, they were reflexes, survival strategies encoded in childhood, repeated like a mantra in adulthood, until finally you recognized them. You went through the process, you acknowledged their existence, and something changed. The problem is, you didn't just heal old wounds, you dismantled the entire system that had been driving you. Now you know you don't want to be loved for your mask. You know you don't have to do everything perfectly. But in that case, why get out of bed? What's the point? The old motivation is gone, and the new one hasn't arrived yet. Jung called this stage nigredo, the alchemical blackening, the disintegration of the old form before the birth of the new. This isn't depression. This isn't stagnation. It's the death of who you were before you can discover who you truly are. Let me tell you about Martina. That's not her real name, but her story is painfully real. After a divorce that turned her life upside down, Martina went through deep therapy. She worked through childhood trauma. She closed painful relationships. She stopped escaping into work. She found peace. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid anymore. But when she returned to her job in HR, something she used to love, she felt only emptiness. Meetings, strategies, promotions that once excited her now felt hollow. I used to have fire inside me, she said. Now I have silence. And that silence may be the greatest teacher. It's not a lack of meaning. It's the end of false meaning. Your inner world, which for Veer played on the strings of fear and the need for validation, is now silent. Not because something is broken, but because what used to drive you no longer serves you. The culture we live in isn't prepared for that silence. It teaches us that growth is a chart always going upward. That if something hurts, it must be fixed. That if you lack energy, something is wrong with you. But deep transformation doesn't work like a pill. It works like soul surgery. And after surgery, you don't dance, you learn how to walk again. Maybe right now you don't have the strength to return to what used to drive you. And maybe you don't yet feel a new direction. This is the transition phase, the liminal space where you are no longer who you used to be, but not yet who you truly are. You're not lazy, you're not weak, you're not lost. You're in between. This is an initiation phase forgotten by modern civilization. In the past, this stage was sacred: solitude, fasting, rite of passage, silence before returning as someone new. If you feel emptiness right now, don't rush to feel it. Don't throw yourself into a new project, new relationship, or new passion, just to escape the silence. Stay in it for a moment. It's trying to show you something. You are not empty. Your old life has lost its meaning. Let me tell you one more story. Marek was a manager at an international company. He planned everything with clockwork precision: career, marriage, kids, mortgage, until something in him broke. He started therapy, then went on a retreat. He began to listen to himself, and suddenly the world he had so neatly arranged felt foreign. He said, "It's like I've been acting in a play for years, and now I see backstage, and I can't act anymore." This isn't depression, it's purification. Your old why has stopped working, and the new one is just beginning to be born. But it doesn't shout, it doesn't pound the table, it doesn't push you into action. Your true self speaks in a whisper. a gentle invitation. But to hear it, you must first quiet the noise of your old fears. Jung wrote that the true self doesn't need masks, but to discover that, you first have to take off all the ones you've worn. What you're feeling now, this emptiness, this silence, this disorientation, doesn't mean you're lost. It means the old roles have died, and you're learning to live as someone authentic. This won't be instant, this won't be easy, but if you stay in this silence, if you trust the process, if you allow your inner self to speak, it will show you a new why, a new spark, a new life that won't be a reaction to fear, but a response to truth. The truth is, there is no map for this stage. There is no guide who will tell you now turn left, now complete this task. This isn't that kind of journey. It's not a path from point A to point B. It's the disintegration of the old geography. Your inner compass has stopped working, not because it's broken, but because the needle no longer has anything to align with. The old North Stars, success, validation, love for achievement, have disappeared from the map. This is where true alchemy begins. Not when you fight, not when you fix, but when you sit in silence and there's nothing to do, nothing to achieve, no one to please, when you don't know who you are, and you allow the question to exist without needing an answer. Notice how many times in your life have you tried to define yourself through action. I am what I do, what I achieve, what I can do. But what if you are someone much deeper than that? Someone who existed before the first goal appeared. Someone who was whole before you were taught to seek approval. This doesn't mean you'll never do anything again. That life will become passive, empty, motionless. But it means that when you do begin to act again, it won't be an escape from yourself. It will be a return to yourself. It won't be a rush of adrenaline that masks fear. It will be a quiet strength that flows from silence, from authenticity, from depth. You don't have to hurry, you don't have to force it. Your new motivation won't come in the form of a slogan. It won't arrive as a step-by-step plan. It will come as a direction, a soft desire, a gentle yes to something that once seemed insignificant. It could be a walk at dawn. It could be writing a few words in a notebook. It could be a deep conversation with someone who truly listens to you. And that is the seed of new life. Not an explosion, but a seed. Not the manifestation of success, but a gentle presence that says, I am. You know what's most unexpected? The new self being born in you won't be spectacular. It won't resemble the ideal you've carried in your mind for years. It will be quieter, more humble, and yet deeper, more true. Needing no approval, needing no spectacle. It is a self that has nothing to prove, nothing to earn, nowhere to rush. And although it may seem less productive, less ambitious, this will be your true strength. Because in the end, it's not about how much you do, but about who you become when you no longer have to prove anything. Jung called this the process of individuation. It's not about being perfect, it's about being whole, about being yourself. Not the way society taught you, but the way silence wrote you. And sometimes this silence lasts for weeks, sometimes months. But its length is not a problem. Its length is a necessity. In a world that rewards immediacy, waiting becomes a revolution. Not doing becomes an act of courage. Being present becomes the deepest expression of life. Maybe right now you still don't know where you're going, but that's okay, because for the first time you're not being led by fear, but by silence. And in that silence, a question may appear. If I am no longer what I achieve, then who am I? And the answer won't come right away. It will come slowly, in small gestures, in unexpected moments, in simple joys, in deep connections. The new life won't be an attempt to return to the old. It will be a new quality of presence. You'll work, but from a different energy. You'll create, but not to fill a void. You'll love, but without fear of loss, because at last you'll stop abandoning yourself. That doesn't mean life will become easy, but it will become real, and that is a value that cannot be measured by achievements, likes or awards. It is your new foundation, not built from fear, but from truth. So let this silence last as long as it must. Let it shape you. Let it lead you, not like a GPS, but like a star that doesn't tell you where to go, only reminds you that you're on the right path. There's one more thing no one tells us, that in the process of awakening we lose not only illusions, but also comfort, because even if something was false, it was familiar, and what's familiar feels. And even though you said, I want to be free, now that you are, you don't know what to do with that freedom. Freedom, real freedom, is terrifying. It offers no ready answers, no label protects you, no script, no social costume. You have a blank page, you have yourself, and you have time. It sounds beautiful, but it's also a burden, because now you can no longer hide behind old excuses. You can no longer say it's not me, it's the role I'm playing. You stand naked, inwardly, and only now are you learning how to live without the armor you've worn your whole life, without the constant need to prove that you are somebody, because you're finally beginning to understand that being somebody doesn't require anything, except the courage to be yourself. But who is this yourself? That question has no single answer, because authenticity is not something you find once and for all. It's like a river, changing, alive, unpredictable. It's not about catching it, it's about learning to flow with it. That's exactly why so many people, after a deep process of inner transformation, abandon their former paths. They change careers, leave the city, begin life anew. Not because they want to escape, but because it's impossible to build a new life in a place that only remembers you as who you used to be. Sometimes the soul needs a new context in order to begin speaking in its own voice. But just as often, it's not the outer world that must change, but the way you are within it. You can return to the same job, to the same people, to the same responsibilities, but as someone different, without the role, without the tension, without pretending, simply as you. It won't be spectacular. No one will give you a medal for it. But from now on, every act, every yes and every no will carry a different quality, because it will come from a place that doesn't need approval, only alignment with your own inner truth. Jung said that the meaning of life isn't to be good, but to be whole, to embrace both light and shadow, to not run from what's difficult, but to learn how to breathe within it, because maybe it's right here in this deep silence after the storm that you're truly breathing for the first time. In indigenous traditions, this moment was called initiation. It was a rite of passage, a time when a person became someone new, not because they learned something, but because something within them had to die. The child died, so that the adult I could be born. Dependency died, so that responsibility could be born. Illusion to make space for truth. But today they have no rituals, no guides, no elders, no fire at the center of the village. So our initiation comes quietly, often in solitude, in a dark room, staring at the ceiling, not knowing who you are anymore, when everything you once knew stops making sense. And you think something is broken, but this isn't a breakdown, it's an awakening. Because initiation is not about learning new truths. It's about shedding old ones, leaving the cave, abandoning the map, and trusting the stars. That's why you feel empty, because everything that once defined you has burned out like a used candle, and the new hasn't yet arrived. And you know what? That's a good thing. Because when there's nothing, you're ready to see everything. Not through the filter of desires or fears, but as it truly is. There is no more I must, no more I should. There remains only one question: what is true? And in that question your new self is born, not as an answer, but as a presence, not as a plan, but as a quality of being. Because the soul doesn't work through logic, it works through resonance, through tenderness, through a silent yes, to a life that is no longer a fight, but becomes a path. Have you noticed how many people achieve success and still feel empty? That's no coincidence. That's proof that success without connection to the soul is just another illusion. Because true fulfillment doesn't come from reaching a goal, but from staying in contact with yourself on the way there. And maybe that's exactly why what you feel now, this emptiness, this stagnation, this silence, is the greatest gift you've ever received. Because you've stopped believing that you have to be someone else in order to deserve love. You've stopped chasing, you've paused, and finally, you're hearing yourself. This is a moment many never experience, because it takes courage to do nothing. It takes courage to wait until the new impulse comes from within, not from fear, not from others' opinions, not from the ego. And when it comes, it will be quiet, unmistakable, and only you will recognize it because it will sound like you. Imagine an ancient myth. Persephone, daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest, a girl from the meadow, light, innocent, engaged in nothing more than picking flowers, until one day the earth opened beneath her feet, and she was pulled into the underworld, into Hades' realm, into darkness. For centuries this myth was told as a story of abduction, but Jung and Hillman saw something more in it, a symbol of passage, not evil, but necessity, not punishment but transformation, because to become queen of the underworld, she first had to descend into the world she feared. And when we enter that state of inner silence, emptiness, lack of motivation, we too descend, seemingly not of our own will, but on a deeper level. It's the soul that is calling us, because the soul doesn't grow in the spotlight. It grows in the shadow, in the soil, in what is uncertain, in what is painful. Like Persephone, you too must descend, not today, but to be reborn, no longer as someone's daughter, not as the product of others' expectations, but as someone who knows the depth of night, and who can return not the same as before, but fuller, more aware. In the myth, Persephone returns to Earth in spring, but she doesn't come back as the same girl. She returns as a woman who knows two worlds, who has seen what others avoid, who can bring life into the world, because she has known death. That is the symbolic meaning of your emptiness, of your lack of drive, of your reluctance to act. This is not a collapse. It is a descent, a journey into the realm of inner darkness, which teaches you things the light never could. Maybe that's exactly why you feel like you no longer belong in the old worlds. It's not that something is wrong with you. It's that you've seen too much to go back to being someone who lives only for surface values. And maybe that is the beginning of true wisdom. Pause for a moment. Don't try to understand. Don't analyze. Just listen to the silence you carry within, because silence is not always emptiness. Sometimes it is full. What appears as lack may be a spiritual pregnancy, carrying something inside you that doesn't have a name yet, but is already beginning to grow. A seed does not scream when it sprouts. It doesn't ask for recognition. It doesn't post pictures from underground. And yet, beneath the earth, everything happens that will later become life, roots, structure, the strength to break through the hard shell of the world. And it's the same with you. Maybe the results aren't visible yet. Maybe others think you're standing still. But within you, something is being born that cannot be rushed. It won't come as an impulse. It won't come as excitement. It won't be a sudden burst of motivation that fades after a week. It will be calm, a deep, quiet yes to life that needs no proof. And then you'll begin to act. Not because you have to, not because you fear missing a chance, but because you will no longer be able not to act. Because life will flow through you, not as a plan, but as a force. Silence will turn into movement, restlessness into intuition, and you, instead of returning to the old you, will build something that has never had a place in you before.